Hi Karen. So I've read your questions, your answers to the questions, and also your clarifications many times. So I'm very familiar. I've made like quite a few notes here. I've been chatting with my guides. So we are ready to go. So let's begin, Karen. Greetings, Karen, and thank you for inviting us into this conversation that you are already unwittingly having with your highest self aspect and your guides. And this is something which we believe you will find to be quite revealing in this session. So, let's get straight into it, as we've already hinted a little about what shall follow. So, your very first question. Why is it that you feel like you are on the outside looking in? Why do you feel that there are those around you who are moving ahead in connection with their guides and their higher self aspect, having communication, and yet you are not? Why is this so? Is it just not meant to be? Is this something which is not intended to happen in this lifetime? How do you address this? Can something be done? So, it is with some degree of humour that your guides and your higher self aspect hear these questions of yours. And before we get to the reason why they hear these with some degree of humour, let us first do a small analysis of your childhood. And then this is going to help bring some clarity, make some sense about the experiences you're having in your adult life which are relevant to this question. You were born number 5 of 7 children. A identical twin, born just a few minutes ahead of your sister. Yet, in your life, in your childhood, you felt that you were perhaps the black sheep, not really one of the favorites. And for us, the energy that we get from these statements, and also looking back, peering into your Akashic records and seeing this part of your childhood, of your life in total, there was this feeling that you were on the outside looking in. That you just weren't quite as included as the others. The others had access to a level of connection and communication with your parents that you didn't quite possess. Now, does this sound familiar? In your adult life now, when you consider this connection with these higher sources, these higher aspects, these fonts of wisdom, which in an emblematic way your parents also were in your life as the child. For children who are in the vicinity of their parents will perceive their parents as the fonts of wisdom and knowledge. And as you had this experience with them, where you felt a little that you were on the outside, you were a black sheep, you weren't really one of the favorites. This is now what you are projecting onto this new symbolic representation of the fonts of wisdom and knowledge. Meaning that you are feeling that you are on the outside looking in because you are not being recognized, you are not being connected to, you're not being communicated with by your higher self, by your guides, in the way that you see it occurring to others. And these others are symbolic of your siblings. So it is a repetition of this childhood paradigm that you believe was the truth of your reality. And we are not saying that you were mistaken But we are saying that, can you see the similarity? Can you see that this belief you had at childhood is very similar in this belief you have as an adult? That you just aren't quite getting the connection, getting the communication that you would like to occur and that you see others enjoying. This is entirely projection. And we are going to discuss now why this is something which your higher self aspect and your guides find to be amusing. So, as you have said, there has been quite a transformation that has taken place in your life. You are now very much on the spiritual path, and you're very much a believer in spirituality, in alternative methodology such as alternative medicine, and you have awoken to realize that the political beliefs you held in the past were based on a narrative which is false, which does not exist to relate to you the truth of your reality, but instead is an instrument of control, is an instrument of dysfunction, is an instrument of division. And you are realizing that something very different is occurring, and that there is something on the horizon, and then there is some form of gauntlet that must be passed through before this moment on the horizon is arrived at. And so it is important now that there be done spiritual work, that there is awakening, that there is elevation in vibration, that love is unconditional, and that we all come together and form the unity. These are ideas and concepts were becoming very prominent in your belief systems. Would you say this is correct? And do these ideas and concepts that we have just repeated back to you, which you possess, do they sound to you like they ring with some form of deeper wisdoms? Do they seem to you to be quite insightful when you consider the way that you used to think in the past, the things that you used to believe? Would you say that you are at a greater place of insight, a greater place of clarity, expanded in your wisdoms, more able to love as the divine being? We suspect your answer is yes, absolutely. That is the truth. Then can you see? This is because you are being very guided by your higher self aspect and your guides. You are in regular communication with them. Your connection with them is very strong. This is why you are where you are. This is why there has been such a profound transformation in who you are, in what you think, in how you love, in the energy that you hold. It is only an awakened individual that was able to exist in the reality shared by everybody else within your societies that could resist the push to get the jab. You did not do it. You were able to resist. This cannot be done by a being that is existing primarily in its mind. This is only possible by a being that is more present as the higher self. You do not believe the story that is told through the mainstream, because you are present as the higher self, and this gives you an insight which most others as yet do not possess. When you are in conversations and discussions with your family members, with your siblings, with your own nuclear family, and they are dismissive of your ideas, yet you still love them profoundly. You still love them unconditionally. This is wise love. This is the love of an expanded being. And an expanded being is by default, by definition, in communication with these other aspects, this higher version of self, and with your guides, because it is the same bandwidth. If you're in communication with these higher aspects of self, which gives you access to the wisdom which has led you to the path to where you find yourself now, then this elevated bandwidth, therein is found also the message of your guides. It is the communication coming from this higher vibratory realm that exists within your infinity. So, this is why your guides and your higher self aspect find it amusing that you say that you are not in communication with them. And in fact, prior to the commencement of this channel, when notes were being made in an automatic writing way, they made the joke that you are claiming all of the glory for yourself, because you have not made the recognition that your expansion, your growth, as profound as it has been very much facilitated by these other aspects of self, by those that are here with you to lovingly bless you and facilitate this growth, and the higher self aspect, which is the true you, and wishing to communicate to you through the noise of the mind. And this feeling that you are on the outside looking in, that you are missing out, that you are not making the connection, not receiving the communication, this absolutely is the noise of the mind and is not the truth, is not the reality. So, the first shift that we strongly recommend, and you could say that we are anointing you, we are granting you permission to accept this new paradigm of belief. And that is, you absolutely, in a very powerful and strong way, are in communication and connection with your guides and your higher self aspect. Please accept this into your belief system and remove what has been lingering, primarily as an echo from the past. Something that you have taken with you from childhood and now projecting into this model which shrouds the truth from you. So, if you are able to make this recognition and accept this as belief, and we strongly recommend that you do, because it is literally the truth. It is not conjecture. It is not wishful thinking. You absolutely are guided by your guides and your higher self, as all beings within the earth human field are. However, you are receiving the communication. You are acting on the instruction you are receiving. You are very much being intuitively guided. And that is why you are where you are right now in your life. This is why you are here listening to this message. This type of spiritual elegance that you are manifesting into your life, quite simply, is a capacity of which your mind is not capable. It can only be manifested as it has in your life when it is coming from beyond these limited realms of the avatar. It is being sourced from your extra dimensionality, from your infinite non-physical. And in your infinite non-physical is found your higher self. So, going forward with this new belief system and this new acceptance and a humility that this is actually what is occurring, we recommend a more formalized approach to the communication that you have with your guides and your higher self. And if it makes it more simple for you, you can just consider that a team. We detect that you have two guides with you at all times. And also there is the higher self aspect. So you could consider them as a team. And they are willing and also integrated, and it is intended in the design that they function as a team. So you can consider them as a single identity of multiple parts. They are forming a group beingness as such. And this is something which has been explained by us in other channels which are in general distribution, about this idea that you are integrated with your guides. And the you, the true you, is the higher self. So the feed that is coming into the avatar, it is a real-time download stream of the higher self, and integrated into that is your guides. So your presence at all times is a composition of mind, of higher self, of your guides, and the skill of increased mastery such that your presence becomes more authentically you. And by you we mean this higher self non-physical aspect. It means that the mind is silenced, and so the proportionality of your presence is more the higher self, this download stream. And in this download stream is included the presence of your guides. And so then when you exude into the moment instantaneously, expressing an immediate flow of this download stream, which is this composition of guides and higher self, then this is what you are actually already doing. You are literally already doing this, but what is not occurring is your recognition that this is what is occurring. So, the formalization that we recommend is that you go into a meditative state. And in this meditative state, literally start having a conversation with your team. And allow the conversation to be two-way. So you can ask questions and then you can receive the answer. Now, what is important to understand about this is that these aspects of self, they will communicate to you through the only platform which is available to them. And that platform is your imagination. And this is where it becomes tricky. This is where it starts to form a conundrum, because how can you trust your imagination? Because your imagination is the place of childhood fantasy. But understand, this is a very deliberate dismissiveness. But understand, this is a very deliberate dismissal of your imagination by those that are hoarding the sacred knowledge. Because they do not want you to realize the power of the imagination. Because the imagination is literally the communications link between you in this avatar form, experiencing the 3D, and these expanded aspects of self. And so in your culture, you will often hear it said, "Oh, you just imagined it." And this is not used as in, therefore it must be something which is trusted and given some reverence and deeper consideration, but instead to say, forget it. It's useless junk arising from this children's fantasy land. So, this is the same as saying there requires suspension of disbelief. When you are communicating with your guides, with this team, and it is coming up through the imagination, you are forming a group beingness with them. Because, as we have said, your presence at all time is a composition of mind, of higher self, of your guides. And self-mastery is shifting this composition such that mind is minimized. And so mind becomes something which is present really only as computation, really just to facilitate your team or your higher self aspect to integrate into 3D and gather experiential knowledge of itself, such that it accumulates so much experiential knowledge of itself that eventually you are present entirely as the higher self. And this is when you become the divine being walking the earth. So, in this composition state, the information coming up through your imagination is going to feel like it's just you. Because in this composition, you will be found. You are in there. And so it is going to feel like it is just you, that it is the first person perspective. You are speaking to yourself. You are just imagining it. And these are true. But understand, it is not this or that, but rather it is this and that. You are speaking to yourself. You are imagining it. And also at the same time, you are communicating with your team, with your higher self aspect, with your guides. So, initially, this will feel a little awkward. It may feel a little silly, that you're just being stupid, that you are fooling yourself. But continue with the practice. Make it part of your life. If you are serious, if you really are sincere about connecting with your team and having regular communication with them, then this is something which is going to take practice. And it is a practice in the actual exercise of doing it, and also it is practice in faith. You are fortifying your faith that you really are in communication with your team. You are fortifying the belief that it really is what you hope it to be. Your reality is very malleable when mastery is attained. And so these are steps along this path of mastery where you can begin manifesting the reality that you desire primarily through faith and belief. So, we hope this has helped you make a significant shift and to realize that you are much, much further down the path than you believe yourself to be, Karen. And the evidence is all around you. Look at the type of person that you are. Look at the beliefs that you hold, the insights you possess, the wisdom that you're able to access, which does not seem to be available to almost everybody else that you know. How is this so? The only way it can be explained, which makes sense, is that you're already very guided. You're already very much in connection and communication. But because it is coming through the platform of the imagination, you have just assumed it is you. And there is nothing wrong with that. That is entirely okay. The point of this conversation is only because you have said that you want to experience, from the way that we understand your structure of question, a formal relationship with your team. And so, it is as simple as changing your beliefs. So your belief is no longer that I am just awakening just sort of randomly with nothing really going on, it's just kind of happening, to I am being intuitively guided by my team. And in my team is the higher self aspect. So I am literally awakening to who I really am. I am more and more becoming the divine being, animating the avatar, rather than seeing the avatar and the mind as me. Because that is not entirely true. They are not really you. They are just the temporary instrument you have in this incarnation. So, let us move on. Let us next address this question you have about your family and their ascension, and you're concerned that they are still very much immersed in the 3D. The most beneficial thing you can do for them, as they are very close to the ideas at this stage, and they do not wish to hear them, they do not wish to consider them, and they're so out there that they look at you as somebody who is easily dismissed because they know better, because they are so conversant with the narrative. And they believe this gives them some superior perspective, superior understanding. And of course, this is the purposeful design of the narrative. The narrative is designed, it is engineered, such that those who fully commit to it with a sense of superiority and greater understanding and deeper intellect than those who reject it. This is not a mistake. This is done very purposefully. And so one of the genius inclusions in this design of the malevolent ones, the cabal of darkness, the unified malevolence, who have been the engineers of this narrative, is to inoculate those that commit to the narrative from the truth, from anything which would awaken them, to the point where they will police it, they will shut it down. They will almost, in a sense, nah, can't hear you. because they really, really, really do not want to hear it, because they have been programmed in that way. And again, this illustrates that you clearly are being intuitively guided, because you see in your siblings how profoundly strong that impulse is. And yet, why does it not work on you? Why have you not also succumbed to the narrative in a way where you reject any truth trying to penetrate, as your siblings do, as other members of your family do? So, there is little point in debating with them, in arguing with them, in presenting your ideas, because at their energetic set point, as it is now, they are unlikely to budge. And if anything, it will make them double down. It will make them dig in their heels. And so they will become more resistant to the message which you feel would be beneficial for them to hear. Always, the way to address these important people in your life and all other aspects of your special group is energetically, is to come at them from a set point of energy. And there is a frequency range of energy where once it is crossed, then suddenly what was once hidden from you, even though it was all around you, becomes visible. So what was dismissed in the past now becomes something that you give deep consideration to. And this is because as you increase in your vibration, this unlocks capacities to see and understand with a deeper insight, as you have experienced in your own life. So, continue on your own personal journey of growth and expansion and discovery, especially under this new formalized relationship and recognition that your team are there and have been guiding you for a long time. And allow this to be felt in your vibration, such that your energy continues to rise in its frequency. And so you become more and more and more and more a beacon of this energy. And a beacon of this energy is synonymous with saying you will become a beacon of change. Profound change within yourself, but change also into those that are exposed to your energy. You do not need to argue with them. All you need to do is be present with them and vibrate at a high frequency, a forever increasing frequency. And you can sit there silently with a smile on your face, filled with an overflowing unconditional love for your siblings and all those that dismiss you, knowing your truths and feeling them grow within you. And this will have a very direct impact on those around you. It will begin to soften them. And when we say soften, we mean that it'll begin to soften the constructions of the mind. And as the constructions of the mind begin to soften, when they are exposed to this energy that you will hold for them, then it is like a chink in the armor. And little bits of truth will begin to penetrate deeper than they've had access before. And they will hear something and that will strike them. Huh? And they will give that some consideration that before they would never have given consideration. And now the inroads into their deeper levels have begun. And they themselves will be the ones that will deconstruct this construction of the mind, because it has been awakened from within. And they will begin to prove that their beliefs are false. You will not need to do it. They will do it for themselves. And if they are willing to engage in conversation and to discuss these things with you, then you can facilitate this deconstruction of the false beliefs of the mind, which have been held because this is what the narrative demands. So, each of you has their own journey and is moving at their own pace, which is relative to them. And understand that every single moment is perfect. There is no such thing as the imperfect moment in your life. The only thing that can make it feel like it's imperfect is if you label it as imperfect. But when you label each moment as imperfect, then you are implanting the seed for the manifestation of yet another moment, which it would be very conducive to you labeling as imperfect. And this is a pattern you do not want in your life. The imperfect moment, followed by the imperfect moment, followed by the imperfect moment, and on and on and on it goes until you can have the insight to break that pattern. So, it is much healthier to view every moment, regardless of its content, as the perfect moment. This was perfect. This unfolded exactly as it should have. And this is going to release you of the burden of concern about, will your family be ready for the changes that are coming? It is not with indifference or coldness that we say, it is not your responsibility to ensure that they are in the right place at the right time. Your greatest gift to them is to be the energetic beacon which ignites their own awakening. This is more than enough. In fact, we would say it is the most powerful, most palpable thing that you can do for them. So, even though you see that they're still very much asleep and you have your concerns, understand there is still much more that is yet to unfold in your reality, in your societies, in your co-manifested experience. And so even though they may still be very rigid at the moment to these ideas that you wish to share with them, there are things that are yet to happen that when they do happen will make them question very forcefully their beliefs and will begin to create these chinks in the armor so the inroads can be made, and then they start deconstructing from the inside. So rather than being completely of computation through the mind, they will begin to be a deeper being that is insightful and introspective through the lens of wisdom of the higher self. This is yet to occur, but these changes are coming, and your greatest facilitation, as we have said, is to be the energetic beacon at the time when it occurs. So, your focus now should be on yourself so that you can magnify your broadcasting capacity, your intensity of light, your profundity of love. And this will be facilitated through a formalized communication and recognition of your team. Although it is not essential, as you have already proven. Because look how far you have come. in complete denial that this was already occurring. Regarding your career in yoga and your cervical stenosis. Cervical stenosis is potentially quite harmful, and it often is the result of wear and tear on the spinal joints. So, as it is related to wear and tear, then this is similar to saying that it is progressive. It is something which contains the potential to become worse over time. So, with this in mind, we make the recommendation that you stop doing yoga in the way that you have been doing it. So, to give consideration to this vehicle which you are going to continue to animate for some time yet, it is important that you can make the journey to the end of the life of the avatar with the greatest degree of comfort and function that you can. And this is still well within and the most likely outcome for you. However, we feel that this manifestation, where you are beginning to get the stenosis in the neck, is that you are manifesting a repetition of this pattern. So as you have said, as you have asked, is it something you are not getting? And we would say yes, it is. So, in your childhood, you had the feeling that you were not one of the popular ones, that you were kind of the black sheep, that you were kind of on the outside looking in. Although you did not use that last part specifically for your childhood, you did use it in the way that you described the relationship with your team. And for us, it is very reminiscent of this childhood perspective you had of your place in the family. The black sheep, as you put it. So, you are on the outside looking in. In a way, you are separated, you are cut off from the larger whole. And if you look at what is occurring in your body now, where you are having stenosis in the neck, cervical stenosis, in its most serious presentation, this can literally lead to, and we do not wish to alarm you, we're not saying this is what's going to occur, and probably this is something you're already aware. We assume that you've already done your research. So you are probably already aware that when stenosis of the neck becomes quite serious, then you have problems with paralysis of the rest of your body. So it could be said that you become cut off, that you become on the outside looking in. So you no longer are part of the whole. You're separate from it. Can you see this is the manifestation of a physical paradigm, a physical metaphor of this energetic modeling that you have taken from childhood and placed over, projected onto other parts of your life? And we would speculate that there is more than one instance. If you were to think of it in your adult life, you feel a little cut off from your team, as you felt a little cut off from your family in childhood. And we would speculate that this, if you give it some introspection and examination and consideration, that this is something which you have felt in other instances in your life. Perhaps in a group of friends, you felt that you were kind of on the outside looking in, that you weren't quite on the same wavelength. You're a little of the black sheep in the group. Or perhaps it was in your work, or perhaps it was somewhere else. And now, because this pattern has been repeating, and it is growing in amplitude to the point where you're having shouting arguments with your siblings, feeling rejected at times by your family. This escalation, if it continues, you are going to come to a point where you are beginning to feel cut off from your body. You are going to feel like you're on the outside looking in, meaning that you no longer have any control or any say in what is going on with the rest of your body. So this is a message that it is important that you get now. And accept that you are part of the whole. You are part of the family. You were part of the siblings as a child. Always. Yet, you just had the experience in your own unique way, as each of your siblings had the experience of childhood in their unique way. So, to address this at its root, send your memory back into your childhood and think of the times where you most potently had this feeling that you were on the outside, that you were the black sheep, that you just weren't one of the favorites. Perhaps it was something one of your siblings said, or the way your siblings teamed up against you, or something that your mother said or your father said, or you heard your parents agree. Whatever it is, go back to those moments and get some separation between that moment and who you are now. And see that it is something that occurred a long time ago. And it is not relevant anymore to who you are in this moment. And when you feel this separation, like it is just something from the past, an echo, which does not have meaning, does not really have a tangible value in your life now, then go to that young version of you and explain to that young version of you that you are worthy, you are loved, all is well, and that the feelings that you hold, the way that you rationalize that occurrence was actually inaccurate, because really you were loved and appreciated by your family. And even if, when you say those words, you feel like perhaps it isn't as true as you would like it to be, understand that just as there is an infinite number of permutations of every moment ahead of you, there are countless, infinite number of ways that you can decide to experience the moment. It is the same in your past. There are versions of you that had a very different experience, that felt entirely integrated into the family, who felt they were appreciated, who felt that their family got them, who felt that they were one of the favorites. This version of you absolutely exists. And you can make the shift into that version of you, such that that version of history, of this version of you, is now your version of history. Because it is all linked. It all leads. It can be found, the pathway going back to you as you know yourself now. So make that your historical perspective of all the moments that were impactful in a negative way, and now linger as a dysfunctional echo in your current life. This is using the quantum field to manifest the reality you want, because it is that flexible. And we have done a channeling specifically on this with a similar title as to what we just said, and that is how to manifest the reality you want from the quantum field. So, with this in mind, that from our perspective, this is a metaphorical manifestation of this feeling of being cut off. Literally now, where you're beginning to create the scenario where you will be cut off from the rest of your body. In a practical addressing of this situation, we say to change what you are doing as far as the yoga practice goes. So either choose to practice yoga yourself using only movements and poses which do not also increase or exacerbate the pain, and give up the professional career. Or transition the professional career such that now you give instruction in yoga specifically for people who wish to do yoga but have physical ailment, have pains which are chronic in their joints, in their back, and so on. Because you have this insight, because this is the condition which you also are dealing with. And then the final suggestion, although we are planning to come back and discuss the second suggestion, in the final suggestion is to shift the discipline so that you are teaching something else, so you are becoming an expert in some other field. But the energy is very similar. So for example, if you were to begin a growing understanding of a discipline such as Tai Chi. So you learn Tai Chi, you become proficient at Tai Chi, and then you can instruct in Tai Chi. However, it will be less of a detrimental impact to your body while exuding and sharing the same energy of growth, of awakening, of wisdom, of expansion. So, now returning to this second idea, which is to teach those yoga who have chronic pain in their own bodies. And the reason we wanted to revisit this one is because this is a great opportunity for you to tap into the wisdom of your team in a formalized way. So you can develop routines and develop poses and develop entire flows which can fill a class for people who have chronic pain, using the instruction and guidance of your team. You can call upon them to intuitively guide you. And so when you have made this request to them, and you are going through your own development of methodology, of practice, of poses, and you have an inspiration, understand and recognize and also give thanks that this has come from your team. It has come from your extra dimensional aspects. It has come from your infinity, where the true you and your guides can be found. And over time, develop, in a sense, your own version of yoga for those that are dealing with the physical issues, the chronic pain that you yourself are dealing with. But on this question, the final point is, cervical stenosis is potentially a serious condition. So, it is, of course, as you understand, being an intelligent woman, that it is your responsibility to make sure that you have the clearance of relevant experts before you begin down any path which we recommend. So, this has been a wonderful experience for us. And the reason that it has been a wonderful experience for us is because it is always joys for us to help a wonderful person, such as yourself, to connect with their team. And it's particularly delightful when the connection is already so strong, but all that is required is just a shift in belief to reveal what is already there. So, in a sense, we have just raised the shutter. We've opened the curtains. So the light of the truth can stream through and illuminate what is already present. So for us, this has been a very easy job indeed, because that is all we have done. We have walked into the room and we have opened the curtains. So now that you can see what is already there, the room has been illuminated with the truth. So, continue on your journey, Karen, and do so with utmost faith and belief and appreciation that your guides are there. And every time you feel inspired, give gratitude for that inspiration. And by doing this, by holding these mindsets of faith, of belief, of appreciation, of gratitude, you are fortifying the connection. You are giving it strength. You are giving it foundation. You are opening the floodgates so that the wisdom and the insight and the guidance of your team can flow into your conscious mind in an unprecedented way that you have experienced in your life. And this is going to accelerate you along the path that you are already on, into deeper levels of wisdom and understanding that we sense you have a very strong desire to discover and enjoy and use as the stepping stone to even yet deeper levels and deeper levels and deeper levels and deeper levels. You are not lost at all. You are very much where you need to be. And now that we have shared what we have shared with you, you can see the path ahead of you. with a greater clarity than you did before. But understand, that path was before you nonetheless. All we have done is allow you to see just a little further into the future, so you can gaze upon the future that you're already manifesting, of deeper wisdom and self-understanding and unconditional love. Thank you, Karen, and we love you.